So why don't we start by walking through what you guys are working on and what your companies do.
Sure.
Here, you want to just...
Sure. So my name is Michael Wuehler. I'm co-founder of a project called Infura. I'm really excited to be here in Shanghai. It's been about a year. I was here for DevCon a year ago, and happy to be back, and happy to be welcomed by TechCrunch for this conference. So my project Infura is a core infrastructure platform for Ethereum and IPFS. We deliver a RPC API endpoint so developers can offload the infrastructure requirements of their decentralized applications and focus on writing code.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Here is Patrick Dai. I'm the founder and also the chairman of Qtum Foundation. So for Qtum, what we are working on right now is we are building a new platform. We wanted to learn from Bitcoin, from Ethereum, so we can build a better platform. So we put the Ethereum virtual machine, the smart contract ability to the Bitcoin source code, and the consensus is proof of stake. So and right now there are more than 25 projects are building on Qtum right now. Yeah.
I'm Nick D'Andrea. I'm the core developer for Truffle, which is a development tool for building decentralized applications. It manages the full life cycle of development from unit tests to deployment to multiple networks, that kind of thing.
And so why don't we start by talking a little bit about when developers started getting interested in the idea of decentralized applications. When did that happen?
Well, I think just with the advent of the smart contract-based blockchains, it started to trigger in people's minds new business models, new ideas. So we see platforms like Ethereum, like Qtum, starting to get developer mindshare at the application level, trying to think through new business processes. Very similar to the internet in 1992, it changed like the capabilities and opportunities for business models. We started to see completely new things coming out. So I think that's what has started to happen. The challenge we have now is that I guess the technology itself is still very young and immature. There's still lots of work that has to be done, scaling solutions like Qtum is working on, scaling on the Ethereum blockchain. So until some of that gets kind of ironed out, it'll be a while before this next layer of applications will already start to flourish.
Yeah. I think the reason like more and more developers, they are moving to the decentralized application because personally I believe in the future the developer will not develop the application for Apple Store or for Google Play anymore, because all the developers, they can easily find, they can deploy their application on the blockchain very easily. So I think that's a very big change for the whole software development industry in the next 5 or 10 years. We will see we do not need to download any applications anymore. No more Uber, no more Airbnb, all these separate applications. All we need to do is like you download a blockchain platform, like it's like an interface for you. And what the function, all the function what you need is like you input like I want to call a car, and then the car is already nearby my home. So you do not need to download all these separate applications, and all these things can be happened based on the blockchain and based on the smart contract. So I think that's a big change is happening right now, and that's part of the reason why right now more and more developers, they are building their functions on blockchain, because it's more lower cost and high efficiency, and it's more easier for them to approach all the developers and all the customers.
So would you say we've hit that point, like the gold rush on the App Store, where everyone was rushing to build applications for the App Store, or are we still not quite there yet?
Yeah, I think because right now, for why you are building application for Apple Store, because people need people do not really need the software. All they need to do is they need some functions. Yeah, all these the functions have many ways to develop the function. So the blockchain, I think, open a new window for all the software developer to deploy the smart contract, and they can have the similar function like a Uber or a similar function like a Airbnb. So why you need so many softwares? I have like maybe more than 100 application in my phone. I'm tired of this. Yeah.
Are they all buried in folders, basically?
But I would say like decentralization isn't a silver bullet, and I think it's exciting for people to think now about a decentralized Uber, a decentralized Airbnb, but that in a lot of cases, a lot of these aren't going to make a lot of sense. Everything doesn't have to be decentralized. So really, there's going to be this balance between actually a new business model that's actually real and really decentralized. Really, a decentralized model really enables it, versus just trying to take an existing centralized service and push it into a decentralized model.
And you're in contact with a lot of these developers and probably talking to them pretty regularly. Would you agree with him that developers are kind of thinking that these will exist side by side, or is it all in on decentralized right now?
Well, there's probably a spectrum. Some use cases lend themselves to a hybrid model of decentralization for kind of core business logic with central servers for maybe image hosting or things that don't quite fit into a blockchain.
And you mentioned that the technology is still maturing. Where are we in 2017? How far along are we in terms of actually getting real usable applications out there?
I can start. I'll give my opinion. It's 1993 and the internet is where we are. In 1993, you couldn't have fathomed building YouTube. It took 5 minutes to download a 50 kilobyte photo through your AOL or whatever. And so we focus a lot on how currently blockchains can't scale. But I believe that we still have a long way to go to get to where we actually can enable a global decentralized application. So right now, a lot of the apps, they're proving that they work, but you could have 10 users or 100 users, but you couldn't have 100,000 users. So I think we're very early still.
We're probably 2 years away from WeChat working on Ethereum.
Yeah, personally, I think like we are very far away from a very scalable like use case for a very big adoption right now. Because right now, when we are talking about the decentralization, most of the decentralized application is it's not the dApp, it's just an application. Yeah. What's a big difference is like earlier, all these applications, they have no incentive model. They have no token mechanism. No one can get their tokens. But right now, okay, a lot of traditional applications, they say, oh, I want to tokenize my business model. And then they claim it to be a decentralized application. But in truth, it's still the same application. So I mean, people still need to figure out what's the biggest use case for the decentralized application. From my understanding, like maybe in the future, we have a decentralized Uber. Yeah, we have the decentralized Airbnb, so we do not need to rely on the Uber company or the Didi company or even the Alibaba company. And all these transactions will be cleared by the blockchain network. That's a real decentralization application.
But I would say that all of these projects, these application projects that are trying to come up with new business models, a lot of them have been doing token launches, ICOs. I think it's great. I think what they're doing is they're creating a lot of positive demand for the folks that are working on the underlying protocols themselves, like Qtum, like Ethereum, to continue to scale, to continue to improve the underlying protocol, because they're seeing that there's demand for applications and there's growth in capital being raised to support these activities.
You mean like basically just prodding the barriers and seeing like how far it can go?
Right.
And sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that there are a lot of early adopters now and a lot of fundraising going on, and that contributes to the ecosystem. Developers are drawn to the platform because there are these early adopters, and that causes the protocols to grow and become more usable, and we'll start to see more full applications in the near future, I would believe.
And so the funding environment has become a little bit more robust for these developers that are interested in building them?
Sure, right. So if there are more developers that are facing the limitations of the platform, they'll be encouraged to improve the platforms themselves, and that will enable applications that have more users and more developers and kind of a snowball effect.
In some cases, the funding could be too robust.
So have we had an aha moment yet when it comes to decentralized apps where it's like, oh yes, of course, that's how it always should have been?
Well, have you ever had a server not connect?
Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think the first successful decentralization is a cryptocurrency concept. And these days, from my understanding, the whole blockchain industry includes like 2 parts. The first part is the cryptocurrency. The second one is a platform. It's a trustless platform. So when we are talking about the decentralization, in truth, we are talking about the trustless platform. So Ethereum is one of the very successful trustless platforms. That's the part of the reason why so many decentralization are building on Ethereum right now. But I believe in the future, if you think it's a platform, it's far away from mature because the scalability, the TPS is pretty slow. It's only can process maybe 20 transactions per second. It's how much is Alipay can process? It's more than 100,000 transactions per second. That's far away from enough. And right now, no privacy protection. I mean, all these a very big difference from the decentralized application from the Android market, from the Android platform. It's like all the Android application, they are more like a container. They have no influence with each other. But all the decentralized applications, they are building on same platform. If something wrong with the platform, all the decentralized application will went down. That's the biggest risk. Yeah.
To add to the point about trust and your point about the platform, it's not entirely trustless, right? You have to trust that the network, but once you have the network, the trust is built. And so you don't have to trust any individual piece, but because the network is so reliable and shown itself to be reliable, you can trust that the network will continue to function as a platform.
And what are some of the barriers to getting adoption for those kinds of tools?
I think the biggest one is what Patrick just said about transactions per second, right?
Yeah, it's a very big challenge for the whole industry. Another challenge I can see is like, for all these centralized application, you have a company, you have an organization behind this, so you can always maintain the applications. I mean, right now on the Ethereum or on other platform, we have more than maybe 1,000 decentralized application. But some of the application, just no one doing the maintaining work right now. The people just get the money and they did nothing. And the application is dead. I mean, in the future, the governance is very important for the decentralized application. Like who have the power to make the decision for the decentralized network? That's an open question for all the blockchain people.
I would also add that a big challenge is the lack of library support. Anyone who's a developer used to a more traditional programming model, they're used to a very large collection of libraries, a standard library. You use Java, you can do whatever you like. Everyone's done it already, but that just doesn't exist on the blockchain.
So you can't Google fixes for your code then?
I hate implementing linked lists on Ethereum.
So you mentioned some of the barriers for transactions and efficiency and things like that, right? How do you overcome those technical challenges? What's it going to take?
So I think transactions is only half of the story, and I think that's the one that gets most of the attention when it comes to talking about scaling blockchains. And that is really the case for Bitcoin because Bitcoin is a one-function chain. It does one thing. The Ethereum virtual machine, as a world computer, I think of it as a database. So for a database, when you're in an application, you read and you make writes. The writes are the transactions, and the reads are calls to the RPC API endpoint. So I run a project called Infura. The Ethereum blockchain currently gets 400,000 to 500,000 transactions a day. My particular project is receiving close to 2 billion RPC API requests a day. So the scale of reads is also a scaling issue that's got to be addressed as well, and that's one of the things that we're doing at Infura. But as far as the other stuff, I leave that up to the protocol engineers.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What are some of the technical challenges that we still have to overcome before widespread adoption?
Besides transactions per second and library support?
Yeah.
Well, those are two of the biggest ones, certainly. I would say community. The community could certainly use to grow. And we've seen that already. The community is growing, but there just aren't the same number of developers working on improving right, you're used to open source projects that have a large number of developers in the community that are improving things little by little, and blockchains really need more of that.
And so you mentioned sort of like a decentralized Uber or decentralized Airbnb,
Yes.
right? What does that look like? Like, can you walk through like step by step what's happening in that?
Yeah, I think it will happen like in this way. Like, I mean, with the technology evolution, with all the AI and with self-driving, it's happening right now. I mean, in the future, the cell phone will become a gateway, will become an interface for people to do the interaction with the applications. I mean, you do not really need to care who is running the application. All you need is I wanted to buy some food, or I wanted to call a car. So all you need to do maybe talk to the cell phone, and then you will get the blockchain network will get a request like, okay, I want to call a car, and then the blockchain network will do the matching for you, and the Uber will coming, and the car will coming, and when you finish the driving, when you finish the ride, you can end with the transaction, and all the transaction will be processed by the blockchain network, and all the transaction. Maybe the money will directly go to the driver. It will not go to the Uber company or use the Alipay or the Visa channels. You know, everything gonna be peer-to-peer on the blockchain network. So that's what the future looks like. Yeah.
So there's one missing piece to that, though, and that's trust and reputation. So I'm not going to jump into a decentralized ride without understanding who that person is. So identity and reputation on a blockchain is something that is one of those core building blocks that still has to be solved. There's projects like Uport on the Ethereum blockchain that are working to resolve that as well.
Right, so the network is responsible for making sure that the smart contracts themselves function as designed and as written, but it's up to the developers of the smart contracts to ensure that the smart contracts have things such as the reputation, so that when a driver submits a transaction, say, I'm at this location, I'm willing to accept a ride, users of the platform have to be able to see through the smart contract that the driver has a good reputation and that they would be willing to get into a vehicle with them.
And do you feel like, so developers are very interested in this, do you feel like the messaging there for the average consumer is in the right place yet, or is there still a little bit of ways to go?
I think it's getting there. I think some applications are beginning to see maybe more widespread adoption from users, not just developer interest. I don't know specifics. Maybe Etherplay seems to be popular. You can play games on the blockchain and wager money or value.
So I think we're still very much in the early adopter phase as far as mainstream consumers. I've talked about a few of the core kind of fundamental challenges. Another one that I believe is a huge challenge to be solved is key management. It's possible for technical people like us in the room to manage our keys and to figure out how to hold our private keys safe. But there's, from a mainstream consumer point of view, it's not that easy.
And so do we need tools for the average consumer for that?
Absolutely.
Is anyone working on those?
Truffle?
And so what goes into that? How do you develop those?
Well, Truffle specifically does several things. It manages the smart contract source. It allows you to build a dApp front end and control the integration between your front end, your application with the buttons and the menus that everyone wants, and connect that to the smart contracts that are managed by the network and maintained by the network, as well as things like unit testing, right? So if you want to create a smart contract, you want to know that it's correct. And so you need to take all of the lessons of software engineering from the last 50 years and put that on a new platform.
Yeah, so what the Qtum we are doing is trying to make people, they can develop the decentralized application more easier. It's like we are doing few things. The first thing is like we are putting the smart contract into the mobile. So people, they can release their coin, they can deploy a smart contract in the mobile phone, like in the Qtum mobile wallet. I mean, everyone is living on the mobile right now, so we need to put everything into the mobile. So that's one thing we are doing. The second thing we are doing is like, right now the only working smart contract virtual machine is the Ethereum virtual machine. the EVM, it's the only working one. But the problem with the EVM is like you can limit it only to few smart contract programming languages, like the Solidity. You can only use Solidity to write the smart contract. But as we all know, like not too many developers really familiar with Solidity. You need to training yourself, and you need to learn everything, and you can write the smart contract. Sometimes it's a very high barrier for people to join the whole blockchain industry. So what we are doing is like we are trying to develop a new virtual machine. We call it the Qtum x86 virtual machine. So by using this virtual machine, all the developer, no matter what's your background, like your C developer, C++, Java, Python, all these developer, they can use the majority programming language to program the smart contract. By this way, I mean we can bring the smart contract really to the mainstream, to all these traditional IT developer. That's something we are doing can help the whole industry to get more developer. That's what we need in the whole industry. I mean, even right now, the whole industry, it's $300 billion industry right now. But I think we need more talents. Yeah.
And what are some not so obvious applications for a decentralized app? You know, you mentioned, you know, like obviously there's Uber, decentralized Airbnb, Bitcoin, things like that, right? What are some not so obvious ones?
I can't wait for my robots to pay for their own repairs.
Yeah, I think the decentralized application, sometimes it's not only about the technology, it's also about how people trust their application, how people trust the network they are using. Yeah, people want more transparency. So like it can be used in many areas, like the decentralized computing, the decentralized cloud, all these, even the decentralized, the movie distribution, the music distribution. People can build a decentralized application. They can integrate the payment information with the contents information together. Because all the internet, we need something right now everyone can copy the internet, everyone can copy the information, but we need something no one can copy it. That's the real meaning of the decentralization with the payment value together. So I mean that's a very exciting area. We can change the whole software distribution channel. Maybe no more Apple Store, no more Google Play. Everyone can become a channel to distribute the software, distribute the movie, the music. Yeah.
And so as the technology is maturing and developers are getting more interested, that's one thing. But are there any other forces in play that are moving us more towards decentralized applications? You mentioned transparency. Could you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean the transparency is like also it's about the transparency and also the privacy. Like right now, all my data, like what I brought in Taobao, what I brought in Amazon, they have all my data. Well, Google know all my data, so they can do the advertising for me. But sometimes you have no choice to make a decision for if you wanted to share your data. But they just collect all the data from you. Yeah. So if we have some decentralized application platform, maybe you can do the multi-signature, or you can do through some cryptograph. You can do a lot of protection to protect your data. You can know who is getting your data. You can know who is using your data for some business purpose. Yeah, I mean that's one of the area I think is very exciting. Can be protected by the idea of a blockchain. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So as far as one of the drivers, so Bitcoin was released in 2008, right in the middle of the financial crisis, kind of came to life right when distrust in financial services and large financial institutions was about. Similarly, like this decentralization, I think in large part is due to these large data silos. These large companies such as Google, Facebook, Amazon, I know we're in China, so some of those don't work here, but they're basically collecting large amounts of data and monetizing it on you, and in other cases, losing that data to hackers as well. So I think that's one of the other drivers that's pushing decentralization.
Is it going to take like a big shock like the global financial crisis to really create an opportunity for that big core use case that's going to really get broad adoption?
Yeah, potentially, yeah. I mean, I think that's why Bitcoin continues to grow. Just kind of this ongoing distrust in governments in some cases and in large financial institutions.
I don't think a crisis is necessary for adoption. All you really need is one application that works, and then it's not going away because there's no one server.
And are there any, just sort of stepping back a bit, since you guys are kind of watching this development play out, are there any kind of regional hotspots that are more interested in decentralized applications? Like, is it, you know, Silicon Valley? Is it just totally global? Like, who's working on this?
So I've seen there's a lot of interest in Asia, for sure. There's a lot of interest in smaller nation-state sort of places like Singapore, Dubai, for example, Mauritius, some of these smaller governments who have a little more ability to kind of move nimbly and quickly and drive innovation. So at least in my experiences with some of the projects that I've been involved with, I've seen lots of activity in places like Singapore, Dubai, Mauritius.
Oh, I don't know. Venezuela has the highest search volume for Ethereum, so maybe their financial situation is encouraging people to be more interested in decentralized applications.
Yeah, I think right now, all the smarter developer, all the smarter people, they are joining the industry right now. Like for the Qtum team, we have a team member in 9 countries, from China, US, I mean, even in Europe, a lot of team member. Earlier, they are working for Baidu, they are working for Alibaba, working for Nasdaq. But I mean, the decentralized application, the most promising thing is like it changes the society reward structure. Earlier, if you are working for a big company, maybe you get $500,000 as a salary. That's a fixed payment. But like you are working for Bitcoin, you are working for Ethereum, maybe I hold maybe 10,000 Ethereum token. And this year, I mean, I can get much more salary for sure because I hold like a piece of the network, a piece of the internet. So that's really disruptive. I think that's the most important reason why more and more talented people, they are joining the industry because it changes the society reward structure. It changes how we organize the people's creativity work. I believe maybe in 30 years, all these big companies will disappear. We do not really need to work for the big company. All we need to do is like we need to work based on the transparent protocol. We working for the virtual organization on the internet. We working for the decentralized application. That's something is happening right now.
And these industries that stand to be disrupted by decentralized applications like finance and things like that, they traditionally have a ton of inertia, and they're really, really hard to change.
Yeah.
Do decentralized applications have the momentum to overcome that? Is the promise there so big that they can overcome that inertia?
Personally, I think all the financial industry, it's highly regulated. It's super hard to change because it's never about the technology. It's all about the regulations for the financial industry. So what the decentralized applications they are doing is like they do not want a direct conflict with the financial industry. They are building a totally new world, a totally new parallel financial world. Like in the ICO, it's the best example how it destroy all the traditional venture capitals, how they destroy all the traditional funding model. So I think the decentralized application, they are not trying to make the traditional financial better. They are just build a new one. So people will make their decision like which one I want to hold, which one I want to choose. I want to hold the dollars, or I want to hold the Bitcoin, or hold the Ethereum, or hold the Qtum. They make their own decision. Yeah.
And when you're talking to developers, like what's on their wish? I mean, aside from libraries and things like that, what's on their wish list for building these kinds of applications?
Better tooling is a big one, certainly. I think a lot of what people are looking for is the services to already exist. So if you have decentralized applications that can be modularized, different parts can be connected, this kind of interoperability, applications talking to one another, that's kind of lacking at the moment, but I see it moving forward. Applications that talk to one another, share data in reliable ways.
And setting aside Bitcoin for now, if you guys had to put your money, just for our last quick run, if you guys had to put your money down on an industry that's going to be, that is the highest likelihood of being disrupted by decentralized applications? Where would you make your bet?
Supply chain or trucking, maybe. Trucking seems to be an early adopter in all things. So they're using machine learning. I'm sure they'll use blockchain for tracking.
Yeah, I think the IoT industry, the IoT, yeah, the security of the IoT and how do we connect it, how do we manage all the micro device, all these sensors in the IoT industry, and how can we monetize the data, all the data produced in the IoT industry. That's a very big area in the future, yeah.
I would say financial services and financial inclusion in the developing world, which isn't really an industry, but I think that's an area that will really be impacted.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, thanks again, guys. Let's give them a good...